Hi, welcome to Tabs 2 Cents, the show where we talk about finance, business, and achieving success. Today on the show, we have Tom Mays. Tom is a serial entrepreneur, and he's involved in everything from commodities to NFTs to real estate to coaching entrepreneurs. Hope you enjoy the show.
Welcome to Tabs 2 Cents, the show where we discuss multiple income streams and macro factors affecting the world today.
Hey, Tom, welcome to the show.
Hey, Joe, thanks for having me.
No problem. So I thought we'd just start with a brief introduction, what you do, what kind of companies you're involved with, and where you think they're heading.
Yeah, absolutely. So, four primary focuses at the moment. The first being Squadra Capital, commodity and currency traded fund, primarily focusing on gold, copper, silver, oil, soybean, and wheat. And in the currency markets, USD CAD, Euro USD. Second business is a consulting company called Alteza Capital. In the process of building Squadra Capital, I had a lot of conversations with family offices, venture capital firms, private equity, high net worth individuals looking to raise money for that. And they'd say, hey, love what you're doing there, but right now we're looking for real estate or technology companies. And at the same time of having the investment fund, CEOs would come to me and say, hey, are you guys looking to invest in real estate or tech? I'd say no, but let me introduce you to a family office who is. So that incurred, the opportunity to start Alteza Capital with a contact of mine who does a lot of deal making and deal structuring and fundraising. So we started that company together. Third company is Nxt Digital. We partner up with artists in the NFT space, and we kind of do a end-to-end solution for them as far as marketing, advertising, dealing with the Discord groups so that they can just focus on what they're good at, which is making the art. Really exciting. We have a partnership with Aircoins, and we're going to be having a virtual art gallery built in the next couple of months, which will be phenomenal for our artists. Fourth business is through entrepreneurship. I love to coach and mentor other people. So I have a coaching business. I saw a lot of other coaches doing a lot of the same work that I was. So brought together about 11 coaches to form the Global Coaching Association. And with that, we've got coaches from, PhDs in artificial intelligence to PhDs in international business, relationship coaches, spiritual coaches, just really qualified coaches, and we're all collaborating together in the association. So those are the four main focuses at the moment.
Yeah, that's awesome. You are a busy guy, obviously.
Yeah, that's for sure. I love it. It comes with having ADD. You gotta be doing something new all the time, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You got to keep yourself busy. So why don't we go ahead and start with Squadra? How come, what brought you guys to the commodity currency industry, and what's that been like lately? Because commodities have got a lot of attention lately based on, the war in Russia and inflation and all the things that are going on a macro level currently.
So in the beginning, I was kind of headhunted because I was doing a lot of sales and had a conversation with a very, very great trader. And I've always had a passion for investing and trading. And we started having a conversation about forming an investment company together. Originally, it was going to be wealth management, but regulation is much more strict for that. So we started an investment fund, and then we'll grow into that as we continue down the road. It was a huge growth curve to learn all the regulation requirements to be able to launch a fund. Very expensive, dealing with lots of securities lawyers and the Securities Commission. Learned a tremendous amount. It took us about, I guess, 8 to 9 months to really, put everything in place, the foundation for the company to be able to launch it. And then we chose the commodity and currency space because we wanted something that was going to be very scalable. As soon as you pass about $1 million in the stock market, you're further limited to the stocks that you can invest into and the companies that you can invest into. The liquidity in the commodity and currency markets is much greater. So you can manage a lot more money, and it does not affect your trading style or your positions as quickly as it does in the equity markets. So that's why we started in commodities, currencies.
Yeah, that's a good strategy. I think you want to be able to scale once you start to build that capital. One question for you about that is, I know that Squadra is a performance-based hedge fund, and so I'm assuming there's some fees associated with how well your fund does. How do you stay competitive in such a competitive area?
Great question. So we wanted to start with something that was, like you mentioned, completely performance based. We talked with a lot of investors, especially my side of things is very investor relations based, and got a lot of complaints with people saying, "Hey, Tom, we're okay with you making a bunch of money, but you better be performing well for us. And we don't want you guys to be being paid well unless you guys are performing well." Not that they directly said that, but they indicated that. So we didn't want to have a model that was industry standard, like the 2 and 20 model, where we're charging a management fee whether we perform or not. We wanted to create something completely performance based. And with that, we created a 1 and 2 model with alternating between profits between the investor as well as the investment company on performance on a month-to-month basis.
Coming from someone behind the scenes as you are, me being on the other side, looking at investment funds, what's something that we could look out for to know that, these are relatively cheap fees or a good structure? Just for people who don't do this every day, it can sometimes get pretty confusing when you look at fee structures.
Yeah, absolutely. Really, management fees were very popular and they still are, but I think they're becoming a lot less popular. So anytime that I look for an investment, it definitely needs to be tied, or, manager or financial manager or investment fund, the performance of the fund and the performance that the manager gets paid needs to be tied directly to the performance. And if you have, great management fees, then it creates a lot of complacency. And I also believe that the management staff and, the whole company should have a performance aspect to everyone's pay so that there isn't that complacency within the company. So I would keep that in mind. Absolutely. I think that's totally key.
Yeah, and something I've noticed is that sometimes these performance fees are pegged to an index or some kind of relative ETF, say. So, if your performance is greater than the S&P 500s by this much, you get a certain percentage. Is that kind of the structure you guys work with, or is it more like an overall percentage?
Ours is overall. So it's based on a month-to-month basis. We don't benchmark it to, an index or anything like that. So it's directly on a month-to-month basis. If we perform well for the investors, then we are paid for the performance.
Cool. Yeah, that is definitely unique, I would think, in some ways, because usually when I see it, it's like based off something else, and then if they do worse, they got to catch up, and they won't get paid until they do, kind of thing.
Yeah, we have a high watermark incorporated. Again, I would highly recommend, I actually can't recommend anything. This is not financial advice.
Yeah, obviously,
typical disclaimer, but
yeah,
a high watermark is really important as well when you're looking into investment funds. High watermark is, let's take example with $100,000 deposit into an investment fund. The high watermark is set at $100,000. If over a year, say is 40% gain, that $100,000 turns into 140, then the managers can collect a performance fee off of that $40,000 worth of gain. In the next year, if the total capital of 140,000 decreases down to $120,000, then the managers cannot collect any fees. And if they go back up to 140,000, the high watermark is always set at the highest point that investment or deposit has ever seen. So they do not get to double dip on the profits a second time. They need to surpass that $140,000 to a new high before they're able to collect on any performance. So I would, keep an eye out for that as well.
Yeah, I think that's great advice, especially with how volatile things can be, because when you look on a month-to-month basis, sometimes you have these huge gains, but really you're just kind of breaking even at times.
Yeah, exactly. And again, it's about how is the company incentivized, right? Are they incentivized on a trade per trade fee where, they're making money? A lot of financial managers, they get paid on a trade per trade basis fee because it's intellectual property. So it incentivizes them to trade a lot, right? Where if there's a high watermark in place and they only are incentivized to perform a new high, it creates a total different aspect. If there's no high water mark in place, then a company can go down and then just go back up, ping pong back and forth between two levels and get paid very well. If the high water mark has a reset period of 2 years, it's a pretty short time period. So if they take a 40% loss, I saw this with one investment fund particularly, take a 40% loss over a year, and they only need to wait one more year to reset that high watermark at their current level, and then they're going to get performance bonus. Again, going back up, again, that incentivizes the company and the managers and the team in not a positive way that I would accept as an investor. So I would keep an eye out for that as well.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. Actually, just, the subtleties out there are easy to miss sometimes, especially in the financial world, because there's a lot of noise, and sometimes you got to dial in on the things that matter when you're looking at funds or other investments. Moving on to Alteza Capital, you guys deal with real estate and technology. What kind of technology are you looking at right now?
Right now in the technology markets, I've got a phenomenal business coach who's right on the pulse of the market with technology. So he's really pushing me to learn more about holographic technology, a lot of virtual reality, augmented reality, different communication between, platforms, as far as, I can't talk about some things, but like, where do we think cell phones are going to go? Where do we think, what just came out was those Ray-Ban glasses where you can speak to your glasses, right? There's a camera in your glasses, where's that going to go over the next 3, 4, 5, 6 years? I look at health technologies as well. So I'm always studying as much as I can about technologies. My primary focus right now would be more in the augmented and virtual reality and the NFT space, and what the NFT space can develop into. I think if you're looking at it from just an art perspective right now, it's a very shallow perspective with not a lot of potential. But if you look at it with utility and where it can go over the next 3, 4, 5 years, I think it can be very interesting.
What do you think could happen with NFTs and VR and the metaverse?
It's going to be interesting. I really compare it to, the dot-com era. The internet was coming out. Everybody had a wild idea, and 95% of them failed and the 5% survived. But in any new market, there's extreme volatility and creativity to identify what the true pathway is going to be as it moves forward. So the same thing's happening in the NFT space. There's all of this noise, there's all of this volatility. There is people just fighting tooth and nail to figure out who's going to survive, who's going to be strong. But more is, where is this actually going to go? Like, where is this going to be in 3, 4, 5 years? It's not just going to be selling artwork. I'm an advisor for a company right now that's really working on the authentication and verification side of the NFT space, because there's issues with cross-chain and cross-platform trading in the NFT space. So there's so many kinks and so many issues that need to be, ironed out before the space is really going to be able to identify the true direction. But I know there's going to be massive opportunity in this space, and identifying it is going to be crucial as far as NFT integration into augmented reality, virtual reality, potentially, trading assets or selling and buying assets in the future through the blockchain. I think that'll all become more and more commonplace.
Yeah, I had a guest on Save on Springer, and he's a crypto guy. He knows, the guy is a genius in the world of technology and crypto and smart contracts. And I asked him what a smart contract was, and he told me basically it's a digital vending machine. C5 drops you the Cheetos or whatever. So, right. If this, then do that. So, it's just a combination of a bunch of if this, then do that metrics. So it's interesting that you have real estate and technology grouped together. Do you think that smart contracts will be in the future a way of people enabling people to buy homes without, a whole bunch of legal teams, because you just get the smart contract. Now it's your house. It's all integrated in there.
Yeah. I definitely think it'll progress that way for sure. In my opinion, everything is just going to continuously become more and more digital, right? And, the blockchain is an open ledger, right? Decentralized. so everybody can view it. That is good and bad. I don't know how the banks are going to feel about everything being visual, but yeah, I think moving more into the real estate space and fractional sales, and yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunity. I'm sure that expert that you're speaking with probably knows a lot more about the space than I do.
Yeah, well, he knows a lot about crypto and smart contracts and those things. They're just the way that they're built, and commission is just kind of like forever. But anyways, I have to talk to him again about this stuff. But
What
yes,
was the general thoughts?
pretty much, like, for example, if you are a musician and you create a song and you sell it to somebody via smart contract, they will pay you a piece. And if they sell it to somebody else or somebody else listens to it, you continually get royalties on those media properties. Whereas, with a CD, you sell it once and that's it. But with smart contracts, you can program it in to get a little piece of every single time it gets sold or listened to or whatever. So
Totally.
yeah, that's
Like
the
the
general gist, I
Ethereum,
think.
yeah, I think that's great. Like the Ethereum network is so expensive with gas fees, but I think the NFT space, blockchain space is totally going to revolutionize like the world of artists, whether it's, artwork like behind me on the wall, or if it's, music, because they've just been taken advantage of for so long as far as being able to collect their royalties, right? So
Yeah, but like he said, once you get that, digital asset verified, then you can't put it on your platform unless you sign the smart contract or however it works. So then that person will get royalties, right, from Spotify or Apple Music or whatever,
right.
because it will have to be the real authenticated version. So, I mean, I think that's how it works, but it's not really my forte. But
Awesome.
it's an interesting conversation, anyways. But yeah, so moving on to Nxt Digital, then, since we're in the space, what do you guys provide for people who want to look into NFTs?
So we've got three main business verticals at the moment within the company, and we're expanding into two more, with one more on the horizon. Primary focus is just being, like I mentioned earlier, an end-to-end solution for artists, just allowing them to focus on what they're good at, make the art. We'll deal with the digital upload, we'll deal with the marketing, the advertising, the branding, payments, all of that on the digital side of things. And then the second business vertical is we are going to be looking at releasing our own artwork, but that's really not a primary focus. The third vertical is we have access to digital art frames. So we're going to start exploring more into that business vertical with selling digital art frames. I think that's going to be a massive market, with people having digital art frames all over their house, and then they're able to swap out the artwork depending on the season, or depending on a new owner, or different friends are coming over, they can swap out the artwork, which is pretty awesome. And then we are launching a virtual art gallery in virtual reality at the moment, partnered up with Aircoins for the virtual art gallery. And I just saw some renderings today of what it's going to look like, and it's going to be sweet. I'm super excited for that. So we'll be able to display our artists' artwork within the virtual art gallery. People will be able to walk around and view the art pieces. They can go on through a web browser on their laptop or their computer, and literally just like you're an avatar, running around this art gallery. So again, I really think the future is more and more going to be digitalized. So, being able to see some very, very high-end paintings, but a digital version, instead of paying $100 to go to an in-person art gallery, you pay $20 for the weekend to view a virtual art gallery. So really taking advantage of the potential opportunities in the NFT space. So that's what we're working on with Nxt Digital.
Cool. Yeah. So, like, when you say digital art frames, it's just essentially, a canvas that you can flip through different NFTs on, or whatever. Like, because I know I have a friend who bought a Samsung frame. Have you seen that TV? It's like, it looks like a photo. It looks like a picture on your wall, but then of course it's a TV when you turn it on. So is that kind of what you guys are looking into?
Yeah. We've got two different ones that we're looking at. One is, a screen that you put on the wall. But the more advanced one is going to be holographic technology. So there's the frame, and then you have a holographic image of whatever you want within the frame.
Are there artists out there right now making holographic images?
Well, with holographic technology, you should be able to take any image and then project it.
What do you know about that technology? I don't, I know literally nothing about holographic technology.
Yeah, it's quite new to me. I'm in the process of learning about it. I know it's much further along than I know about. I know like very limited amount of it. But I'm really excited because, the world's going to move towards holographic technology, and we're going to be able to, be in meeting rooms holographically instead of being on Zoom calls. So
Yeah. Do you think that'll be like sort of an augmented, like an advanced Pokemon Go kind of thing? Or do you like with glasses rather than your phone? Or do you think it'd be just, holograms you see with your eyes?
So in the like augmented reality would be with like a VR set, right? Or where you're able to move around in the metaverse per se. But I believe the technology over the next, say, 5 to 10 years, we'll be able to just see it with our eyes.
So moving on to your fourth business, let's count it four. Global Coaching Association. So you guys work with entrepreneurs. I wonder if you could just go over maybe a process for people in a couple different stages, say somebody who's, maybe just thinking about starting a business, maybe somebody who has a business who's stagnated, and then maybe somebody who's looking to get to the next level. I wonder if you could provide some advice, some lessons learned for those people.
I love to build businesses. I love technology. I love new things, but true like significance and fulfillment in my life is not going to be from, building a company. It's not going to be from making money. It's going to be from helping other people accomplish their goals and building strong relationships and helping other people overcome limiting beliefs. So that's why I'm so passionate about coaching and mentorship. I've been doing it with many contacts for the past, I guess, 5 or 6 years, and I've only really taken it more seriously as a business over the past 6 months or so. So with that, your three questions was somebody that's just getting into business. Second question was someone that's hit a plateau. Third question is maybe they're reaching an endpoint. So first question would be just fail forward, like John Maxwell's book, Fail Forward. I mean, literally, I've had so many businesses that have been successful and so many businesses that have not, especially in the earlier years, just starting, bringing a team of people together or being a solopreneur and starting it on my own, but not being afraid to fail. Just, limit your losses as much as possible. A lot of people build up this limitation where they think they need $100,000 to start a business. Whatever it is, there's generally a way to make it for a lot cheaper, or at least run a prototype. I had a friend who wanted to do a coffee business, like a delivery service. And he was, he gave me a business plan and a pitch deck, and he's like, I need 200 grand. I'm like, dude, you can do this for like 5K, like, let's go to a coffee place. We'll do a small test, we'll get you some coffee beans, we'll relabel it, we'll do all this stuff, and then we'll run some ads and we'll reach out to a whole bunch of potential clients, see if we can get distribution, and then go from there. And there's a lot of excitement and creativity in having a new idea and just trying to make it work on a very, very small scale. And when you do that, you don't have such a fear or anxiety about starting something new. It becomes a much more enjoyable process opposed to an awful experience. I mean, who wants that stress and anxiety that can come with, that massive weight or that massive burden? So that's what I would really recommend for new entrepreneurs. Also, reach out to, whether it's a coach or whether it's, your uncle who's built a couple businesses, or your cousin who's an entrepreneur, or, somebody that's just progressing in a direction that you want to pursue. And you don't have to, set up a really professional coaching or mentorship relationship with them, but just go to the right people for the right advice. It's funny because my mom's a teacher, and she's an elementary school teacher, and I can't go and talk to her about business. She's an amazing teacher, but I can't go and ask her for advice because she thinks everything that I do is absolutely crazy. Right. So what do I go to her for? It's like, family advice, or, whatever I'm working through at that point. So be cautious of who you're going to for insight and advice on what you want to pursue. Make sure that they have the correct mindset, to be able to provide you with proper advice. And then books, audios definitely just build you as a person. You're the most important asset in your life. And if you don't build yourself, nobody's going to build your business. I've invested over $100,000 into my personal development through like personal transformation coaches or leadership seminars. And I will spend hundreds of thousands of dollars more, millions of dollars more, because it's so important. So focus on you, grow you, network with great people, build relationships, think of great ideas, brainstorm great ideas with your friends, and then don't be afraid to just take a running leap at it. Second would be if you've hit a plateau, great spot to reach out to a coach or mentor, or somebody you can rely on, because there's a reason that you hit that plateau. I always think of typically when someone's also reached a middle point in their business, they are really stressed out. They're working so many hours. Say they've got a team of, I'm thinking of somebody between 5 and 10 or 15 people, and they're working 16 hours a day. And I always think it's scale. So you find that super stressful and anxious and you don't know how to go to the next level. But if you were to put somebody else in your shoes, like Jeff Bezos or, Richard Branson, he owns over 450 companies, that would be the easiest day they've ever had. So when people talk to me and they're like, how do you run 4 businesses? It's like, well, Richard Branson has 450. I mean, this is nothing, right? So I need to change my mindset. So people that have hit a plateau, they need to change their mindset. And typically they need to be able to take a step back and stop working from in the business so much and start working on the business and being more creative, creating better systems and processes so that they can scale their company, rely on people more instead of relying on themselves more, and then reach out to somebody who's got a better mindset, not a better mindset, but a different mindset that can help you overcome those plateaus. And then your third, can you repeat the third question? It was, the end point of a business.
It was actually before those 2 steps. The first question was for somebody who's considering starting a business, but I think you kind of covered it with starting a business. But it's just, I find that, I wrote down this term, limiting beliefs, and that came up when I was looking through your profile. And it's almost like I felt the same way with this podcast or with anything, really. The hardest part is just to start. So I thought we could just discuss a little bit for somebody who's considering starting something, but aren't really sure what to do.
We're just talking about limiting beliefs in general. I find it so interesting, human psychology, like how we can create these paradigms and they will limit us in such a great way. And it can be something from a relationship, or, you get on, even your parents calling you shy throughout your life. So then you believe that you're shy. And for you to become confident is like such a limiting belief that you need to overcome. That's almost considered trauma, right? Because trauma is a strong emotional response to something. And that was an extremely strong emotional response that you ingrained it into your personality. Even people that are super extroverted will consider themselves shy. Really, like, limiting beliefs, in my opinion, is the greatest thing that you can do is acknowledge it. As soon as you've acknowledged it, then you can begin to work on it. But there's so many people that don't realize that they have limiting beliefs that they need to work on, and they're hard to identify sometimes. Sometimes they're subconscious. So I really recommend like meditation, journaling, thinking about that. As far as, starting something, really write down, what are the reasons as to why you want to start it, and what are the reasons as to like what's holding you back from starting it. And that'll provide you with a lot of clarity, because most cases, you're going to talk about all the great things that could occur from starting this podcast. You can meet so many amazing people. You can generate income. It'll be great for your business. It'll be really fun. You'll really enjoy it. Like the positives are amazing. And then it's like, well, what's holding me back? It's like, oh, I'm scared of putting myself online. Oh, I'm, maybe I won't be able to interview people, or it'll be really hard, or this, that, the other thing. And, you can just pick apart every single one of those limiting beliefs or the reasons that you don't want to do it. In some cases, the reasons you don't want to do it might be greater than why you want to do it. And then you might change direction, which is totally fine, which happens with a business quite frequently. People will start businesses that they don't even want to build for the long term, and then they end up hating their life, or choose a career where they should have done a better job in the beginning, realizing if they want to pursue it or not. But something as simple as, I'm scared to talk in front of people, or I'm scared to put myself out there or network, then, if you've got them, if you want to, it's a choice. Like if you choose to want to overcome that, then you can, and then you can boil it down into small things. I hate public speaking. I'm terrified of public speaking. So I identified that. And then I said, okay, Tom, how are you going to overcome public speaking? You're going to go to Toastmasters and you're going to be forced to talk in front of people. And that's how I started. So identify your fear, identify your limiting belief. Maybe you work with someone on finding that, and then start small. For me, it was just initially becoming more confident in conversations because I had a lot of social anxiety. So becoming more comfortable doing sales presentations, and then just having conversations firstly, then presenting in front of people, but just chipping away at it. Everything is a muscle and it needs to be grown, it needs to be developed.
Yeah, I think a lot of that boils down to just being comfortable with being uncomfortable, and just sort of pushing through whatever it is that's holding you back. And like, I do a lot of stuff with fitness too. Like I talk to guys about fitness, and it's a similar thing. Like you're never going to run a marathon if you don't run 1K. And, you see those guys running marathons, you think, oh, they must just be the most amazing athletes on the planet. But what I realized, like I'm a horrible runner, but I've dedicated time to it. And what I've realized is it's not that hard for them because they run that much,
Yeah.
So the more you do it, the more you train, the better you get. It's not like they're pushing as hard as I am to run 40K. I mean, maybe they are, because obviously they're at that level to run it that fast. But if they were to run 40K the same speed as me, it would be a breeze. So,
Yeah.
it's just kind of, it's really interesting when you bring it back to perspective and training. And, that just seems like you're training for, your future. How do you think that people can find their best potential, let's say? So something they're really good at and that they like. Because if you're going to succeed, you sort of need to like what you're doing, and you kind of have to be good at it too, or at least, have some edge in that area. So what do you think for that? Because that's hard for people.
Yeah, it can be for sure. And just to add on to what you were mentioning about, running is, I think we also build up the goal or what we want to do to be something much bigger than it is. You don't have to go run an ultra marathon the first day. It's like, 150 kilometers. Why don't you just go for a 5-minute walk, 10-minute walk, 15-minute walk, and build up slowly, right? If you want to start a podcast, why don't you just think of the name of the podcast, buy a mic, play around with it, right? Just have conversations with friends, start small, go from there. Then you can start moving faster and faster. As far as, figuring out your strengths and weaknesses or what you want to pursue, I loved what you said. If you want to build something, or if you want to go far with something, you have to enjoy what you're going to do, right? And that's so true. You're not going to be able to have the energy, the stamina, the endurance to push through a lot of pain, a lot of uncertainty, a lot of hard times to be able to build a company. That could be also relevant to sports, but mainly talking in the business world. So finding something that you love, and I wouldn't say love or like passion, because, passion in my eyes is really developed, but something that you don't hate all of the time, I think is a great place to start. There's always going to be, I think 80-20 rule applies in this space, where 20% of the time you're not going to enjoy it. 80% of the time you should really focus on enjoying it and choosing something that you will enjoy 80% of the time. The stuff, if you're building a business, delegate the stuff that you don't enjoy doing as much as you possibly can to assistants or virtual assistants or to your team. Focus in your strength zones instead of your weaknesses. What gives you energy? When you do something and you finish that call or you finish that meeting, maybe it was uncomfortable, but you feel very energetic after it, or you're excited to something that's coming up in your business or something that you're doing in your life. if it's giving you energy, then it's something that you're going to be pulled towards. It's very hard to push something for a long distance, but if you're being pulled towards something, it's a lot easier. So I would focus on that, analyze your strengths and weaknesses, where do you perform well, where do you don't, where do you not perform well, and then go step by step from there.
Yeah, I think you have to be honest with yourself. I know that I'm not going to play in the NHL. It's just, I'm too old. I was never good enough. Like, it's just not going to happen. I could go shoot pucks all day and I will not make the NHL 100%, no matter how hard I work.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't mean that there aren't other avenues that I could take that I might enjoy just as much. So, I mean, when you say write down your strengths and weaknesses, I think that's really important and a good point to make. One thing I wanted to note on that I found interesting, even just, it's funny because I always come back to this podcast because it's really the only thing that I've done that hasn't been like career oriented or, a salary or whatever. It's just kind of a side project. One thing that I noticed that other people told me is that, motivation, it's not a linear stream. It's motivation is just as volatile as the commodity market. You know what I mean? Some days I'm like super keen. I'm putting out shorts on YouTube. I'm like doing this. I'm going on Reddit. And then other days I'm like, you know what? I'm not really that into promoting today. It's funny how motivation works, but if you like what you're doing, you're going to continue on even through those low days, even if you're not quite as productive. So what do you think about motivation and staying motivated? Do you have any tips for people?
I take a two approach on that one. I think everything is individualized and individualistic. Like, say I'm coaching someone or working with someone like myself, I have a tendency to overwork and I will ignore emotions 99% of the time, and I'll just push through all day, every day, and I will burn out super hard. So for me, motivation has never been something I've considered because it's just, you do it. I don't care how I feel. You just push through endlessly. My business coaches actually taught me to slow down and listen to my feelings more and be more intuitive and, allow myself more grace. And with that, it's actually allowed me to perform at a much higher level. So, but then there's also the flip side of it where, you could be a little bit more of a procrastinating person. You don't, want to work as much. You listen to your feelings too much. I hired a new assistant like 6 months ago, and he's like, Tom, what do you do when you just don't feel like it? And I asked him a few questions to see like a little bit about his life and his mindset, and identified like, hey, this guy needs to push. He doesn't need to slow down. He needs to push harder. And then I was like, Tyson, why are you listening to your feelings? He's like, well, I don't know, like, you're supposed to. I'm like, well, why don't you just not listen to them and just do whatever the hell you want anyways? I mean, if you're in the military and, your sergeant says, hey, go and do this, go over there, and you're like, meh, don't really feel like it. I mean, I would say 90% of people listen to their feelings way too much. I think of the Spartans, like, when did emotion become such a big play in what we want to accomplish with our life? For me, it's all about responsibility. It's about goals. It's about pursuit. Feelings is just a byproduct. If I feel great, great. If I don't, no problem. But there is a double-edged sword with that. Sometimes you do need to slow down and give yourself some grace. But
Yeah, I agree. I think that probably most of us can push harder than we are, but it is difficult, when you have responsibilities and a work life balance comes into play, especially for people with families, and you want to be careful not to overwork yourself so you don't have any energy left for, the people you care about, and you want to make sure that time is well spent. So it is very difficult, but it isn't, it's one of those things where you really got to think about your goals. So, I mean, when we talk about goals, like, what's your goal? You're at 4 businesses, and I'm assuming you want to grow those, but do you want to keep pushing through? Do you have a plateau in mind, or are you just going to just keep going and pushing through and growing?
yeah, definitely a lot more. I mean, I'm just getting started, in my opinion. I want to have hundreds of companies. I look up to people. I use comparison in the most positive aspect as I can. Like, when I go snowboarding, I want to snowboard with a professional snowboarder. I don't want to play with people that are, the same speed as I am. I have no interest in that. I want to push myself as hard as I possibly can to succeed and pursue what I want to pursue. So when I compare myself to, Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, Richard Branson, Tim Cook, major entrepreneurs, because that's the same impact that I want to have with my life. I want to, innovate. I want to inspire. I want to progress mankind. So, my goal is to have hundreds of companies that are primarily focused in technology and the advancement of the human race, in my opinion. And then, some companies are just going to be financial to create the revenue and the capital to be able to push on those other businesses that are very innovative. And then, like I mentioned earlier, the significance and fulfillment that I have in my life is going to come from coaching and mentorship and the relationships that I have with people. So I want to mix in a Tony Robbins aspect of that into my life, where I do seminars, I do one-on-one coaching, I do group sessions, I do some books, some podcasts, because all of these entrepreneurs I've mentioned have had such a tremendous impact on my life in so many different ways. Even though I've never met them, I truly want to be able to provide, a small fraction of that to, people that may look up to me, people that are inspired with what I've done. And I want to be a part of that, progression. So those are my dreams and goals, is to pursue technology, finances, to pursue my dreams and goals, and then coach and mentor on a global scale.
So where are you looking for the next company? What kind of industries are you poking around at?
That's a great question. Right now, I got to admit, these four are keeping me awfully busy. I'm an advisor for a few companies. The next company, I'm going to scale these four, and then I'll probably be looking into some more leading edge technology. But I'm a very opportunistic person, so it really depends on the relationships that I have with business people. It really determines, what's going on in the marketplace. I would say for the foreseeable future, over the next 6 months to a year and a half, 2 years, I'm really going to be focused on these four and scaling them. That's going to take the vast majority of my time. If some great opportunity comes up with some of my business contacts, then I would jump on it. But at this time, I don't foresee like, hey, I'm going to be starting this business. Within my investment fund, I do want to diversify into a technology venture capital firm within Squadra. And then I will also have a real estate investment fund as well, and a cryptocurrency traded fund. So those in themselves are pretty much miniature businesses, because I've got to form a team and put in the foundation and the structure. And then I've got business verticals planned for Nxt Digital. Again, those are going to be, pretty much mini businesses within that company. And yeah, so at this moment, subsidiary companies within the ones that I have, and then if anything comes up, I'll take it on as well. But don't want to get spread too thin at the same time.
Yeah, for sure. What's the general outlook in your circle of friends? Not that I'm, asking for too much information with climate change and climate technology, carbon capture, solar, wind, all these different alternative energy sources, and oil and gas in Canada. I'm pretty bullish on Canadian oil personally, because I think for energy security purposes, we are one of the best bets, us in the US. But what's the kind of general feel out there for the climate change type of discussion? I know you're in BC, so that's kind of a good spot to look.
Mm-hmm. As far as climate change as a whole, I am not well versed in that space, but I do work with a couple very interesting projects. One is a synthetic fuel project. I believe, we need to adopt more synthetic fuel that burns a lot cleaner. There definitely needs to be innovation in the oil and gas space to reduce the general fossil fuels. Carbon credits is a very interesting space at the moment. Definitely not an expert in that, but work with a Bitcoin mining operation in the US that is utilizing wind power for these operations. So they get a lot of advantages with the carbon credits and tax credits. I'm an advisor for a circular economy project based out of the US with a very innovative technology aspect for building, circular economies and circular resorts where it's, end to end, they're desalination plants, growing their own food, having, garbage recycled and biofuel on the resort, holistic medicine, these very interesting, innovative projects that are, they want to be carbon zero as much as possible, as much benefit to the world and global warming as possible with all of their sourcing for products and services. So I find those very, very interesting projects as well.
Yeah, it was actually carbon credits that got me to start a blog in the first place.
Oh.
And that progressed into this podcast. I actually have Peter Sainsbury coming on, and we're going to talk about voluntary carbon credits and kind of that industry. I think there's a lot of potential there as well. It's really interesting. I mean, with that being said, I was just sort of looking for the general feel, because I've sort of thought that once COVID was out of the mainstream media, we would probably revert back to climate change. And then we'd have all these businesses saying, we got to get to net zero. We got to do all these things to fight climate change. But of course, the war in Ukraine broke out. So that, climate change kind of takes a back seat when there's a war, as it should. So, if the war ever calms down, from a macro perspective, I have no idea what's going to happen over there and how that's going to filter through the rest of the world. But let's say that war stops in a couple of years. Do you think climate change will take over the media?
I hope so. I think that would be really beneficial. Yeah, I think climate change should be a very important topic that many people are talking about and improving on. I love, the ESG projects and the ESG investment funds where they're primarily looking for environmentally friendly projects. I think that's very important for the sustainability of Earth, right? So I think it should be a discussion that's had a lot more frequently, and a lot more focus should be on that, opposed to, just the general media, in my opinion, is horrible. It's so negative all the time. Would much prefer much more positive and constructive media outlets. Not that, to say that the war is not important. Of course, it's extremely important. But I just believe general media and the attention of the world is focused on things of relative unimportance or negativity, opposed to important and constructive.
Yeah, and controversy gets you views, so there's always that.
Yeah, drives me nuts.
Mm-hmm. And the whole clickbait and everything. That being said, I think that we've covered a lot of ground. If you want to just let the listeners know if they're interested in, any of your 4 companies, or if they want to find you on Instagram, Twitter, whatever, you just let them know where they can find you.
Yeah, absolutely. You can find me at tommays.com. Got my 4 companies listed there. And then, so you can explore those if you're interested in that. And then I'm on all social media platforms, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and whatnot. So, yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks for coming on the show. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, Joe. Greatly appreciate it.
No problem.
Joe is not a financial advisor and may have interest in the stocks discussed on the show, so do not take any information included within this podcast as a recommendation or formal advice. Thank you.